Hey Poe Dameron, what'd you think of the movie? I thought it was great, Andy. Thanks, Poe Dameron. I know it's not how he sounds, but you know what? It's my figure, so I can make him sound how I want him to sound. This Star Wars The Last Jedi review will have no spoilers and then spoilers later down the line, and I will let you know, but you will know my thoughts on the movie before I go into spoiler territory. When I read the text scroll, I thought, oh no, this could be an Empire Strikes Back copy, but it wasn't. They kind of made you think that by the text scroll, and then they changed up the whole situation, which to me was just great. It was like they slapped those people in the face who thought it was going to be an Empire Strikes Back copy, and then it wasn't one, and it was great. I loved the movie. Now, a lot of people have had problems with this movie, I found. People who like to call themselves true Star Wars fans, and this is coming from someone who is the biggest Star Wars fan you'll ever get to know. Vader t-shirt and the style of a metal band, alright? I have Star Wars The Clone Wars seasons 1 to 5 on Blu-ray. Still need to get season 6, you know. I have a Poe Dameron figure, you know. I have a lot of Star Wars stuff, and I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I know a lot of the old EU and a lot of the new EU. So, I mean, a lot of people's problem was the way they dealt with the Force and everything, and I'll get to that more in the spoiler section, but I really liked how Rian Johnson brought his own flair to the Force and to everything in the movie, you know, in the Star Wars universe. I don't think he broke anything. I think he just explored more than what anyone else has actually ever done in the main line of Star Wars movies, which I loved. The reason why I love this movie so much, besides the performances, the music, the locations, and the storyline, was the fact that I felt like I was watching an EU movie, an extended universe movie. Sometimes things just felt so in-depth and creative that I felt like I was watching an EU movie, and that's why this ranks so high for me. Now, I got out of the movie theater, or at least the movie ended, and I didn't feel like, oh, hype, like The Force Awakens, or oh, hype, like Rogue One. But to me, the fact that I can safely say this is one of my favorites, possibly my favorite, Empire Strikes Back rivals it, but this is closely climbing to my favorite. The more I think about it, the more I tend to like this film, and that is something that wasn't with The Force Awakens. The more I thought about The Force Awakens, the more I didn't like it. The more I thought about Rogue One, I didn't like it. Hell, the last time I tried to watch Rogue One, I couldn't get through it all. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood. There were amazing moments in Rogue One, but I couldn't get through it all. This movie, the more I think about the plot points and the more I think about what happened, the more I enjoyed like the movie, the more I look back on the movie with fondness, you know. This movie didn't lull me into a false sense of like wonder, and yes, there was wonder and awe in this movie, but you could tell there was also a massive intent behind this movie, you know what I mean? Like even the Porgs, which are comedy and everything, yes, they were comedy relief, but they weren't annoying like Jar Jar or anything, and they came at appropriate times, and the Crystal Foxes look amazing. And let's talk about the big stuff now, like Luke Skywalker, okay? I love this character. It was almost like he was the sort of samurai guy, or like just a samurai who was very just, you know, tired with the world and all that, and he needed a new spark of life to kind of reinvigorate him, you know? And when he was training Rey, he did a lot of funny things like, you know, just messing with her, and I won't say how he messed with her. I just loved that whole aspect of the film, and I loved that in this film, you go to so many, well, not so many, you go to plenty of different locations, but it doesn't feel forced, and doesn't feel like it's taking anything away from the story. Like the Finn and Rose section, the planet they go to me, it was kind of like trying to reflect on Earth, on people on Earth. And not in a bad way, it was still a very creative world. I just liked where they took that, and it also didn't overstay its welcome. It was there for long enough. Hell, maybe I'm misinterpreting how long that part took, but I would say it was 15 to 20 minutes in total, and it had a significant purpose, to me at least. That being said, I won't reveal what, but there is something with the Finn and Rose storyline that really did irk me the wrong way, and trust me, you're not gonna know what I'm talking about until you watch the film. It's nothing like, it's nothing that you would guess, I'll put it that way. It's just something that annoyed me, that I kind of wish didn't happen. But beyond that, the Finn and Rose thing was actually, I liked it. I liked it more than I expected to like it, you know? And everyone seems to hate Finn, and I love Finn. He's, well, not epic, but he's the man's man, you know? He just kind of embodies the normal person who's stuck in the Star Wars universe, and that's what I love about Finn. As for the comedy, one of the funniest Star Wars movies I've watched in a long time, or probably the funniest Star Wars movie, but not in like a Jar Jar Binks way. I felt like every comedy line had a purpose for the most part. Like there was a part with Poe Dameron where I'm not going to get into the specifics, but he was doing some comedy with Hux. And the reason for that, the reason for his comedy was actually very well linked to what he was trying to accomplish in terms of the First Order. And again, that's very vague, so you don't get what I'm talking about. As for Rey and Kylo, I can't really say much about them without spoiling, to be honest, but I loved where they took both their characters. That's all I will say. So, you know I loved this movie. If you love Star Wars too, and if you love a sort of EU vibe to a Star Wars movie, I think you'll like this. I do really think you will like this movie. There are people who don't like it, but from what I've noticed from the criticisms they're making, it's just that subconsciously they want an original trilogy. You know, like everyone was bashing episode 7 for not being original enough. And now that episode 8 is pretty damn original. All the complaints I've seen about episode 8 subconsciously has linked back to they want an original trilogy. Now that might not be everyone, okay? There are some legitimate complaints that I agree with. This movie is not flawless, but I can only talk about these complaints in the spoiler section. So let's get into spoilers. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. You know I like this movie. Leave if you haven't watched the movie. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Alright, the first thing I want to get out of the way is the Jedi Temple aspect, because I just really wanted to see Luke in the Jedi Temple or something back then, and I got it. It was one of my biggest wishes that I saw something to do with the Jedi Temple that he created. And I loved that Rian Johnson focused on this. There's always two sides to a story. You know, the fact that Luke said, well, he lied at first, kind of. He said that Kylo came into his chambers and, you know, tried to kill him, essentially, and killed the rest. Then Kylo was like, well, no, I woke up and Luke was about to strike me down. And Luke was like, well, fine. That's kind of what happened, but not really. I was thinking about it. Then he woke up and I was like, I'm not actually going to do this. But when you watch Kylo's recollection, Luke is like this. And when you watch Luke's recollection, he's just holding it out with it ignited. So you can see the grogginess of Kylo and him thinking, damn, I'm about to die here. Whereas Luke is just holding it, not really doing anything with it, which I think was a great perspective to add. And it's actually a pretty damn good reason for Kylo to go to the dark side, because, you know, Snoke had already imprinted everything in his mind about going to the dark side, and Luke solidified it. And I think it was such a Luke moment, because throughout the original trilogy, there were always times where Luke wanted to go the easy route, or Luke wanted to rush things, like leaving his training and all that kind of thing, you know? Then obviously there's Yoda, and oh, they could have made this so bad. When I saw Yoda's head come around the back, I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 because I thought that's all they were going to show, and then, oh, Yoda's gone, just a little cameo just for fan service. But then they brought him back, and from what I could tell, it was the puppet Yoda. And what I will say that was awesome was, he actually impacted the story, you know, he changed the way Luke thought, you know, like Luke was like, the sacred texts, and then Yoda was like, page turners, they were not, you know, that was amazing. And then like, he's like, failure is the greatest teacher, and Luke's like, you know, and then he gets back into it and he does what he needs to do. And honestly, I loved the way Rian just played with the Force in this movie, and that, like, I don't think he broke anything. I just think he explored new things. Like Luke projecting himself was epic, you know. Like I was like, how does he have that lightsaber? And it's like, oh, because he projected himself with the Force, you know. It was amazing, you know. And I loved the way he portrayed it, because Rian portrayed the Force as almost this thing that was tangible at times, but also very abstract at other times, which I've never seen a director do with a Star Wars movie. You know, it's always just been like, it's kind of there, but it's not that tangible. Besides, you can see things move, and it's kind of abstract. Rian Johnson knows when to make it abstract and when to make it not abstract. You know what I mean? Like, there were times where you could tangibly see the Force. Well, not see it, but you know, like when Kylo and Rey are fighting for Luke's saber, and they push each other away, and just particles fly up. That was That's what I mean when I say tangible. And as Snoke said, dark rises and light to meet it, and that's the abstract part of the Force coming in. And what I loved is they also showed how in touch with the Force Yoda is. Like, Yoda's like, I'll do it, and then the lightning comes down as if him and the Force had the exact same thought at the exact same time. And that's just my thought on that. And when it comes to Snoke, you know, a lot of people didn't like that he died, but I thought it was great, you know, like, again, it's my whole original trilogy thing. Secretly, to me, a lot of people just want another original trilogy without admitting it to themselves. They want another Emperor Palpatine. I'm so glad Snoke died. It was such a nice twist and turn, and I thought it was just phenomenal that they completely were like, you know what, Snoke is powerful. They showed he was super powerful. He was playing with them like they were just toys. But because he was so arrogant, they didn't understand completely the true nature of the Force, and that it is the Force and not him that is powerful. That was his ultimate downfall, and that's what I loved. And you know what was another bold choice in this movie? There was no actual lightsaber clash. Yes, there was battles involving lightsabers, but there was no time besides that one flashback where there was lightsaber clashing lightsaber for minutes on end. But either way, I have no problem with that because the Praetorian Guards fight with Kylo and Rey teaming up was epic. Like the fact that the Praetorian Guards actually gave them a run for their money and that their teamwork was flawless was amazing. And it also took away the whole criticism that, you know, Disney is so controlling, you know, and Disney doesn't want anything unfamily friendly. I saw Kylo decapitate one of those guys, and I'm pretty sure I saw Rey decapitate one of those guys. I could have been wrong about the Rey, but I know that Kylo decapitated one of them just savagely, like a back swipe and his head came off, you know? So to say that Disney wants us to be family friendly is absurd. Yes, it's not an M-rated movie. Yes, it's not a 16 movie, but I think it has a PG-13 rating. So to say they want to be family friendly when they're both murdering left and right these Praetorian Guards is just ridiculous, and I loved that direction. And I loved the fact that Luke could project himself, you know? And I loved the battle on Crate. Yes, it kind of mirrored the Battle of Hoth, but I think that was the point, you know? They wanted to pay homage to it. It wasn't like Starkiller Base, where it was just like, oh great, another one, you know? I liked it. It's like, you know, like in episode 2 they use walkers, why not in episode 8? And the battle plays out very differently anyway. No walkers get taken down in episode 8, you know, they escape through a back path, whereas in episode 5, for example, Han and Leia escaped through the main entrance, you know, and it was just different to the Battle of Hoth while calling back to it, and that's what I liked about it. And the fact that this movie was just so unique, you know. A lot of people didn't like that, but I loved it. I loved Ryan's vision, you know, especially with that kid at the end who is like this, takes the broom and with the Force, and then you see him hold it up kind of like a lightsaber. He shows the ring he got. He sees the ship go into hyperspace, and that is just the precursor for something, you know. I really like that. I really like that Ryan is like, well, let the past die. As cool as Luke is, and I think we'll see him in episode 9 as a Force ghost or something, which is, you know, as cool as that is, I think it is time for new light to shine on Star Wars, and that is maybe why I like this movie, because he wasn't afraid to shy away from that fact. And when Leia used the Force, it looked a little goofy, but how do you not make that look goofy? And I think the opening to this film was the best opening to any Star Wars film. It was so visceral, so fast, so well done, so much emotion with that one woman who died sacrificing herself for the bombing run. But I'd have to wonder, where's the Resistance going now? There's like, what, 8 of them left? A broken lightsaber, Rey, and that's it. Whereas the First Order has all their resources. It's either they die out, or the Republic, who is still strong and well in some way, comes and helps them and realizes the real threat of the First Order. I also loved Hux' comedy. It was kind of Monty Python-ish, especially when, you know, he sees Kylo on the ground and he's about to shoot him, and then Kylo wakes up and he kind of just puts his coat back like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. And then Kylo just takes full control of the First Order, and you're like, what? Like, what? And again, just another quick thought, I think the way they handled Luke's death was amazing, you know. He sees those 2 suns just like he saw, I just got goosebumps thinking about it. He saw those 2 suns just like he saw on Tatooine, you know. And he's like, I have come full circle. and then he just lets himself become a Force ghost. Then it's a pan wide shot, and you know, his cloak just sweeps away. I thought it was absolutely beautiful. It was a breathtaking scene. That's one thing. The cinematography in this film was so much better than episode 7. Not that episode 7 had bad cinematography, but this was much more visionary. Like that hyperspace part where it's like, boom, it hits the ships. They all blow up and it's just silent. And it's just a stark blue. That was one of the best moments in Star Wars cinema history. Rian Johnson brings such a unique vision to Star Wars, and that is part of why I loved this movie so much. Also, as much as I expected it, I really liked that Rey's parents were nobodies. I liked that, like having them like kind of just pander to the fan theories of she's a Kenobi, she's a Skywalker. I loved the fact that her parents were just junkers who sold her for, what was it, drinking money? Like, brilliant. You know, this wasn't the legacy of some parent who was strong with the Force. This was the Force knowing that there would be darkness of Kylo and the light of Rey to meet it. And that is what I thought made it so brilliant, you know. I'm not trying to say if she was a Skywalker that would have been bad or anything, but her being a Kenobi would have been ridiculous. Just think of the time period. And just as a character, Kenobi would never, you know, have a child. I just don't think he would. One thing I loved about this film is it was less about lightsaber battles and more about how you can use a lightsaber. Do you know what I mean? I really like that. But I could talk about this film for hours and hours on end. I'm sure there are epic moments in the film that I have completely breezed over or just not even talked about because there's so much to talk about in this film. Frankly, there's just a lot to talk about. There's a lot that is worth mentioning, you know, much more than in The Force Awakens. So I'm not going to be able to talk about all this. All this video is going to go past, let's say, 40 minutes. So I can't talk about everything, but I can give you my final verdict. And guys, I'm going to give Star Wars The Last Jedi an A-. And a very deserving A-, if I might say so myself. Again, as I said, bordering on being as good as Empire, or even better. I haven't decided yet, but I am leaning to it being better than Empire, just for my own personal taste of what I wanted from a Star Wars movie, something that felt a lot more extended universe. And this felt a lot more extended universe. So that's probably a lot of why it won me over. And I think a perfect thing about this movie was how, you know, I never felt like so hyped at the end of the movie. I didn't feel super hyped, you know. I felt like this was a great movie and I love it, but it wasn't like at the end of Force Awakens where everyone was like, yes, Star Wars, you know. I was just talking about the movie with my friends. And the more I talked about the movie, the more I realized how much I liked it, which is the polar opposite for Rogue One and Force Awakens. The more I talked about it, the more I didn't like them, you know. And I still like The Force Awakens, but it's great that I have the polar opposite and that I know I can like this film for all, or love this film for pretty much all eternity. Oh, and the part with Rose that really did annoy me before I sign off for you guys is that basically the fact that she, like, you know, stopped Finn from killing himself annoyed me. It's like, let him make his own decision. It just felt, I didn't like it. It's like, there's still this big gun to worry about, Rose, you know, but whatever. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this probably long video, you know, like, I will spend more time on a Star Wars review than any other review. It's just the way it goes with me, unfortunately. I just don't want to leave too much out. It's just how I am. But if you did enjoy this video, a subscribe would be appreciated, hitting the notification bell as well, because these days subscribing means nothing to YouTube. But this has been the Randy Andy Show, and I will see you in the next video.